Okay.
Unlike this show, I'm good. Not our show. This show. Our show's good.
Unlike what I'm about to do, I'm fabulous. Yeah, that was a
Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to Cult Favorite, the podcast that does not include animated versions of its characters. That's Mike's. The one that I said.
I didn't see this.
Is that it's the podcast that will not insult you with snarky imperative sentences. I'm Merinda Simmons.
I did not even see that in the show notes.
I've got lots of little breadcrumb treats for you. little Christmas cookies that I've sprinkled throughout our notes.
I'm Mike Altman.
To express my rage.
We are two religious studies professors trying to understand all of these cult documentaries that you can't stop binge watching, and we're getting you ready we're a couple of days out from Christmas when this episode comes out. So we're preparing you for all of your holiday arguments with a standoff over our current.
It's not just Christmas. You're outing yourself again. There are multiple holidays.
No, it's literally happening 2 days before Christmas when this comes
Christmas
out.
Day.
Yeah,
I got
you can use this for any holiday.
Okay.
Pick a holiday. I don't
tell them how to support the show.
Because I said year of our Lord last time.
This is your holiday and your Lord.
If you want to support the show, I'm a universalist, and help more people find us, you can follow us all. Follow us on all of the socials at Cult Favorite Pod. Be sure to subscribe to the show. We are ticking up in our little follower subscribers across platforms, so keep doing that. Leave us a rating and review. What?
Keep going.
If you can't tell,
this is gonna be good.
This is the season finale.
So evident in so many ways.
This might be the series finale. Who knows?
No, but we're gonna take a break. We're gonna have a few weeks. We're gonna, we'll keep showing up on the socials. We'll keep the energy ball in the air, as it were. But our next recording will not drop until like at the end of January.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up, and today's conversation is gonna be a bit of a look back on where we've come.
A year in review.
And then we're going to pick up January 27th. Mark your calendars. Put it in your phone. Put it in somebody else's phone.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Good.
January 27th.
Good. This is what we call bringing full circle.
Circle it, yeah.
The stealing phones.
Circle it on your calendar. And we'll be back January 27th with season 2. And we have planned surprises in store. And assuming they work, we'll have surprises. In 2025.
We have ideas is what we have
2025,
right now.
It's the year of Cult Favorite. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I have a content warning to share.
Oh, we should say what we're doing first. So we are talking about How to Be a Cult Leader, a 6-episode series on Netflix that I chose.
Here's what I feel like. I
didn't know what it was when I chose it.
I feel like you put a piece of coal in my stocking. And despite my own, attempts at good behavior. And that's okay because I am here to, tie that piece of coal up in a nice little bow. Put it in a box. Maybe even label it. Have a nice ribbon. Do something festive.
A piece of coal can keep you warm.
I am very angry about what we watched. And but it's okay.
So there's a content warning here.
Well, just that the series sucks. So what did you know before about how to become a cult leader, Mike?
I knew nothing.
When did this come out? When was
2023?
Okay. It
was 2023 and it was on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I made a special Cult Favorite profile on Netflix because my partner was like, keep this stuff off of our list.
Oh, I didn't know that you could do that. You can keep it from the algorithm.
You can have your own little profile. Yeah.
Oh, Oh, yeah,
Mine's
sure.
got the guy from season 1. You get to pick your little
I didn't think about doing
avatar.
that. It's sort of like my email inbox. Like it's all just clutter. I don't know. Like
See, I'm a folder person.
I've
I
just
have so many folders.
embraced the fact that my algorithm is ruined.
I've also learned how to exclude children's playlists from my algorithm on Spotify.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
So I won't get Katy Perry as my number 1 song this year.
Anyway.
Next year. Anyways.
What did you know?
I knew nothing. It just showed up and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it's got like lots of episodes and it seems to have lots of different, it's not just one movement or one event. So we'll use this as the finale.
And then you learned you actually know everything. It didn't present you anything new. You know everything.
Yeah. So what did you know about?
I have in this section of my notes, I can't with like, I don't know, a dozen A's. So my notes are almost as snarky as the narrative voice that presents this series.
How dare you say that about Peter Dinklage?
I'm so
Tyrion Lannister will not be.
I have a letter to write to Peter Dinklage. I'm having a very like Peter say it ain't so kind of moment about the fact that Peter Dinklage is not only the narrator, but also one of the executive producers for this series.
I'm pretty sure that just means they were like, hey, we'll give you points on whatever this makes if you read it.
Fine. It also means, though, that he cannot, like, he does not have plausible deniability.
I mean, he read everything on there.
He read everything on
there. He did
a
great job.
I categorically disagree.
Well, he didn't write it.
He did a great job of
reading it. So, okay.
You know, there are bullies who are very talented at their craft on middle school playgrounds. And so I feel like, yeah, I mean, the show was great. It did a good job at what it was doing, I guess.
All right. So let's talk about
let's do it.
Show. So,
okay.
All right. So it's 6 half-hour episodes, and each episode features a different cult leader and explains how they were like quote unquote successful, and then how they were quote unquote failed. And so there's this sort of gimmick of this book, like how to be a cult leader, that they're flipping through, and each of these is like a chapter on what you need to learn. So it's almost a self-helpy kind of structure. I did appreciate the structure though, because it was very like you knew, like you had your main character for each episode.
Section headings.
Yeah, it's got section headings.
Sure.
So you have
you appreciate an outline.
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Each episode has segments on different tactics that the cult leader used. And then the gimmick is that if you put all these stories together and you find a pattern for how to make it as leader of your own religiously marginal high control group. I'm just going to go through the 6 cult leaders, and then like I have like the bullet points of their tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go real fast. So the first episode, Charles Manson teaches you how to build a foundation for your cult. And the tactics are: embrace your calling, get your dogma down, craft your persona, find your target demo, in that case, young women, test people's loyalty, and then make noise, which was murder. The second episode, Jim Jones, how to grow your flock, blow people's minds, which was miracle healing, personalize your pitch, make everyone chip in, so communal living, expand your territory, get land in Guyana, always have backup, and build your Eden, as in Jonestown, which ended in mass murder. The third one, so this we didn't do anything with Charles Manson. Oh, there's a new Manson doc that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
But we did do Jim Jones already this season. Episode 3, Jaime Gomez from the Buddha Field.
We talked about him as Andreas.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Shows how to reform their minds. So offer something exclusive. This would be the knowing experience we talked about. And actually, Will Allen, who made the film, the Holy Hell film, is in this. Demand service, as in like massages and building theaters. Force conformity, as in celibacy. And then sever prior bonds, which was about isolating people from their families. And then it all falls apart with the abuse. Then the 4th episode is Marshall Applewhite, who teaches you to promise eternity. And so they go through establish your credibility, demand perfection, silence doubt, change the script, which is about actually after T dies, and then identify a sign, which would be the Hale-Bopp comet and the leaving of their vehicles. And Sawyer's in this again. Sawyer's been through it. Then episode 5, 5 and 6 are people we have not watched documentaries about yet. So 5 was Control Your Image, like Shoiko Asahara of the Shinrikyo group, best known for the Tokyo gas attacks on the subway.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is, I thought, actually the best of them because it's all about the way he sort of used, maybe it's because I didn't know as much, but the way he recruited people who were kind of recruit winners, model purity, eliminate dissent. That's another murder. Seduce the press, get political, which was, I think, his sort of weird parliament election run. And then don't get mad, get revenge, which was also murder. Then the last episode, which is become immortal like Sun Myung Moon for the Unification Church. That one, it kind of implies that somehow like he was the best of these. I've already argued that Twin Flames was the best at culting, but his tactics are pull a bait and switch, be a businessman, give him a show, create the next generation, which is like, the mass or the give him a show was the mass weddings, create the next generation was a bunch of kids camp stuff, and then make friends in high places because he has the Washington Times, and then become eternal, which was about handing off all of this to his children, one of whom has splintered off and is formed, if you've seen it in the news, the Rod of Iron, the AK-47 church. So by the end of the story, by the end of the series, the moral of the story seems to be that it's the perfect time to start a cult, and that anyone could be in a cult. And they even imply either you're going to start a cult or you're going to get sucked into one.
That's right.
You have two choices.
Yep. And so
lead a cult or follow a cult.
Because otherwise you're going to be victimized by one. And so if you don't want to do that, you better start one. We've just given you these tools.
Merinda. I hesitate to ask.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about?
I'm going to try. My notes are not super sophisticated for this one. Typically, as you know, like Mike
maybe in season 2, if you join a Patreon, we'll give you access to the show notes.
Merinda's notes. There is a section that because
I just need you to read the first 4.
Because Mike is a highly organized person who has different folders and Spotify and Netflix accounts and things, profiles. He also has a section for our OneDrive, the thing that each episode that we ever do has a section just called Merinda's Notes because I write so much. Okay, you want my 4? I
just want you to read the first 4. Yeah.
Well, I already said Peter Dinklage say it ain't so. Make it stop. Oh my fucking God. What the actual fuck? Those are my very sophisticated analytical.
I think you just copy and paste that right into Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, here's the thing. I mean, there are 15 things. One of the things.
And then I just saw your notes. Sorry.
Yeah. No, okay.
It just under Merinda's notes. It just says this fucking show.
Listen,
man.
I get it. Okay. I don't want to be what? They're actually telling people how to be cult leaders. I get it. If you have not seen it, and I definitely cannot recommend that you do so, those are hours that you are never going to get back in your life. And so I recommend that you just spend the hour listening to us. The thing, the whole shtick is that you've got the scary overlay narrator voice coming to you courtesy of Peter Dinklage. I'll stop talking about Peter Dinklage. I'm disappointed. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Giving you the kind of you remember the movie trailers from the 90s? You'd always have that voice of
in a world.
Right.
There's
So the whole shtick is the in a world voice gives you these snarky, imperative, second person modes of address of the kinds of games you need to play and the kinds of manipulative tactics that you need to employ in order to lure people in and bring everything to bend it all to your will and create your own power force by virtue of this cult that you are going to create with this playbook that we give you. It's it's how to win friends and influence people for cults.
Which shows up in one of the episodes.
Sure does. Or the art of the deal. I don't know. It's a genre. I think that if you're going to be, either these things are dangerous or they're not. Either these,
Right.
I feel like on one hand, their group formation is endlessly complicated and
Mhm.
prismatic, and the like dynamics are just so multifaceted. But the narratives that we have about group formations to which we attach the cult label,
Mhm.
we put into this like these are evil and scary and dangerous, as opposed to like in direct contradistinction to all of our other modes of social formation, which even if they employ all of these tactics, I mean, honestly, get political, seduce the press, demand perfection, establish credibility, demand service, like none of these are specific in any way. They are just all things that, when put in the context of something called cult,
Right.
look a certain way. So in that mode, if you are talking about these like modes of social formation that do become
Mhm.
matters of life and death in lots of cases for people, I don't think that there are a lot of things off limit for like satire done well.
Right.
I
Yeah.
found this mean-spirited and cruel, and
Yeah.
I found the snark unhelpful. And I think that it was a good example of how the label cult lets us
Mhm.
completely ignore any kind of comparative analysis
Right.
and critical thinking. So like, you know, you have someone saying charisma is a very dangerous thing, which could be,
Yeah.
could also not be.
Yeah.
I don't know. The people that they interview are by and large either cult interventionists or former members or biographers of these people. Like there was not a lot of
There's
voice of
one
our old friend Ben
academic,
Zeller.
Ben Zeller. Yeah, Ben
We
Zeller
met
shows up.
we met him
Yeah.
through the Heaven's Gate documentary.
Yeah.
But his point, the point that a lot of them make, like I wasn't sure, I'm skipping around now, but I wasn't sure if like a lot of the people who were interviewed knew what kind of show it would be,
Or even knew the title.
because the stuff that they say, a lot of them runs directly counter. Some of them engaged also in
Yeah.
the snark. But for the people who were talking about, for example, the cruel treatment and the caricature that came in the wake of the Heaven's Gate deaths, like the, you know, Saturday Night Live opening sketch and
Yeah.
stuff, and they were talking about like that's not cool and whatever. Like this show is exactly all of the way that.
Yeah.
And so I was a little confused about whether, or I wondered if they knew what they were being interviewed for.
Yeah.
You know, regarding like Jim Jones, these are other examples of how like critical thinking kind of flies out the window. Jim Jones is obsessed with religion from a young age. Yep. So are lots of people
I mean,
who grow up in faith traditions.
I'm raising my hand, but it's a podcast. You'll be able to see. Maybe you'll. Yeah. But yeah. I mean,
You know,
yeah.
Charles Manson can't separate cult aspects from musical aspirations. Charlie believed he was going to be the biggest musical superstar of them all. Yeah, it sounds bad. Also, though, except when it doesn't, because we love a kid with a dream. So we should stop making Disney movies, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
Regarding Buddhafield, everyone has to look the same and wear a uniform, and it cancels critical thinking for yourself, and it demands acts of service, like a fraternity. Is that like
or the army?
And there are all of these images and montages that are just completely out of context. Someone, you know, like the narrative voice saying something about like someone needing to raise the bar or whatever, and it just like shows a random image of someone pole vaulting.
There was a lot of a reliance on cheap stock footage as metaphor for whatever point they're trying to make.
I find it just
Yeah.
unuseful and exhausting and just I don't know. There was like speaking of the images, I guess, and the montages, like, completely out of context. You see did you notice, I think maybe it was in the first episode, I don't know, very early on, they're talking about like what kinds of people
Yes. This is
this
is the first episode. This was the Charles Manson.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like
when it's find your demographic.
Yeah, okay.
Your target demographic.
So it's like, he's scouting all of these people and looking for someone who's going to be a good part of the group. And so it's like, would this person make a good devotee? And then like script saying like underachiever for like, I don't know, someone looking bored in a like 1950s school or whatever. How about this person? And then it's like thrice divorced. Like, I don't know. So was my Uncle Paul. Like, he's chill. Right. I like him a lot. What about her? She looks a little lost. Philosophy major.
Yes. Like philosophy major.
I mean, cute. Cute. But then they're just all superimposed on images of random people. I found it. You were talking last time about like you don't like it when someone insults the audience.
Yeah.
I found this 6 episodes of 30-minute installments of direct insult to my intelligence.
Tell me how you really feel. No, I think
I will tell you how I really feel. How I really felt was was that this was. Do you know that old movie Reefer Madness? You know that from the 30s that then became.
Yeah.
I feel like this was Reefer Madness for activism, because the whole thing is like, watch out, open-minded idealists. You want to change the world, but they want to change you. And like, there's an interventionist who says that the people who are really susceptible are, like open-minded and idealistic. And this group makes them feel like they can help the world. And it's like, so we're not supposed to feel that way then, I guess is the thing. Cause like on one level, there's the snark about, ha ha ha, right, these crazy people, look at them go.
Yeah.
But there is a subcurrent of like, if anyone is susceptible, which is where they end, like, these are like groups that, have ended in lots of exploitation and in some cases death, and
right,
and in other cases like are just people that we think are weird and so we make shows about. But regardless, that implicit message of if you are open-minded and you actually have ideas about how to make the world better, then you're in particular danger.
Right.
And that these groups are particularly dangerous because they show a different picture of how the world could be.
Yeah.
And that looks better. Like, I don't know, man. This seems like a really tricky time to say don't make the world a better place. Because that seems just dark. Just seems dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it was a crystallization of sort of where the cult discourse is that has been, and the documentaries that we've been talking about are part of that. There's also kind of levels on social media of that, because like so many people in it were, Janya Lalish, Lola Blanc, like former cult members, or like you said, cult interventionists. And so like, I guess I looked at it less, I didn't expect it to be good. I expected it to be a way to tap into the sort of shared vision of cults in our, like where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that way, I thought it was interesting because, we've looked at groups like Twin Flames that was like a married couple. They completely kind of cut T out in her important role in Heaven's Gate. We've talked about the like Lula Rich, like, so there's all of these places one could look for, Gwen Shamlin, like,
sure,
to look at, like, so what you have is this sort of like, here's the assumptions that most Americans have about cults, like charismatic, abusive male leader, money and power. They're either charlatans or fakers or con artists. Like there's an intentionality that's built into this. They are both not us, but also we could be preyed on them at any moment.
Literally, this was also the homecoming king at my high school.
Sure.
And they just do none of that work. None of that work. They do not have any kind of space for all of these other contexts that contain the exact characteristics that we're talking about, receive very different cultural, social, rhetorical, political, economic treatment.
Right.
Here's what we have to say about that.
Yeah.
You know?
I guess I never.
I didn't expect it to be good either.
I
just
expected that level. Like, no one has done that.
Where I feel like that happens is when the documentary is about something that is not a specifically religious tradition to which the term cult is being applied, like Brandy Hellville and the cult of fast fashion.
Yes.
I thought that they were being really structurally analytical, but that's the whole thing, is that as soon as religion in a specific, direct, descriptive, faith-based, confessional way gets put into the picture, all analytical, structural savvy flies out the window like 8 tiny reindeer.
So the one like the garden, right? Cult or commune, and twin flames. These are not using language of like religion per se, right? And even Lula Rich, there's a point where one of the women is like, I'm in a cult, right? Sure. And the one time that religion like kind of formalized things people would normally call religion shows up is when he's doing the random Book of Mormon quotations and it freaks everybody out.
But Lula Rich talked about pyramid schemes as a structural phenomenon.
True.
And with the garden, I feel like, because I didn't like the garden either, but I do feel like part of the reason that was not effective was because that was the whole point, was trying to answer this question of, is it a cult?
Right.
Because they're doing wacky things and they're living together, and I don't know what they believe something about the end of the world.
Yeah.
You know,
and Twin Flames they do make a church.
Yeah, man.
But it's clear, the film talks about it as document as for tax reasons. So okay.
But so is Scientology.
Yes. Yeah.
I just feel like we are willing to go a fur piece down the road of thinking toward and about bigger structural elements of how these systems take up space in our worlds, socially, economically, whatever. But then when we incorporate, or when we put them into the context of something called religion, and then as a subset of that, especially when we put them into a space called cult, any of that work that we would otherwise have to do, we just don't have to do it anymore. Because now we're talking, I guess, about like abstractions and stuff that's.
Yeah. No. I guess I just don't expect these documentaries to do that, and I'm surprised when they do. Like the ones that stand out to me are the ones who take that move, but to me that's like bonus than like what I expect someone to do with these things. I expect them to be a projection of the shared discourse, which is at a certain level that it's not going to get into that, because that's part of the, right?
This is part of like one of the things that we've been kind of coming back to in our conversations is like there is the reality TV phenomenon with the thing called love, right? So there's this abstraction called love. Lots of different people have different relationships to it. Lots of people pursue it in different ways. Lots of people have it run their lives, and other people don't really care that much. But it's a thing that a lot of people care about.
Right.
Something called love.
Yeah.
So there are these reality shows, Love Island, Flavor of Love, whatever.
Yeah.
Bachelorette. That are all like organized around this category.
Right.
We're finding love.
Yeah.
And pursuing relationships that are often really like, straight and look a certain way and whatever. Fine. So, but we would never call them a documentary. Ever.
Right. These are not documentaries of how people find love.
And so we have like ideas about, so there's that helpful genre docu-soap and like that kind of stuff. But if you are putting forward a documentary series snarky or not,
Right.
about human relationships and this thing we call love,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine that it would receive the same kind of flatlined
Right.
lack of nuance that
Yeah.
we see in a lot of these,
This is labeled.
depictions of religion.
Yeah, on Netflix. This is labeled under genres: crime TV shows, docuseries, true crime documentaries.
Okay.
I do want to make one point. So,
Please do.
okay. So
Stop me. Save me from myself, Michael.
It made me think about this Jamil Bowie post I saw
Love him.
on Blue Sky, because I guess I'm there now.
He's great.
But so and this gets to the kind of the Trumpiness of this whole phenomenon. So he said, I think this is part of a long thread, but he said, I think a lot of you people need to decide whether you think Trump is going to be an authoritarian monster
Mm-hmm.
or a chaos failson, because the two are actually in tension with each other.
Yep.
And I think part of what's going on in this whole series is like, they failed, but you could succeed. Like, there's like, are they geniuses or are they fools? Because, they do like how, like the intentionality that is sort of that they're trying to pull you into with all of that you talk, right?
Mhm.
You want to do this, right? Is sort of mirroring the idea that every one of these six men is somehow intentionally, there's a level of intentionality and
sure.
and calculation and connivance going on. And I think that like that there's that same tension between, are these monsters or are these fools, that we are still as a society, even now as we head into Trump 2.0, dealing with, because we know that this documentary, like, it was 2015, 16 when these, like, you can find them earlier, like and I've got a bunch in a spreadsheet from earlier, but they really pick up steam culturally and in terms of like production
Mm-hmm.
in 2015, 2016.
Sure.
And so, like, I don't know. I think there's something, there's a ripe psychoanalytic analysis to be done, I think.
They definitely talk about these figureheads as being exceedingly intentional and very willful. But I don't think that the question of whether they are madmen or geniuses is an honest question. And I don't think, like,
No,
do you
I
remember
agree.
when, and I think Jamel Bowie is terrific at like thinking on the structural level about some of these like
Yeah.
cultural moments and phenomena. I remember in the first episode of this podcasting experiment, before we had our outline.
Yeah, back in the backhouse days.
Yeah, back in the summer when we were talking about Carl Lentz, the head pastor of Hillsong. And you were talking about a story that he told about his like family and a prospective home invasion and shots fired outside and whatever. And the way that he was describing and narrativizing his own role in relation to this domestic fear as like paternal figurehead was in very self-deprecating and feminizing terms.
Yeah.
That like I did what any grown man would do. I hid under the couch and screamed or whatever. And I said, and I agree with my past self, that the reason that he was able to do that unironically and for it to work, he has to project such a hyper masculine mode of gender performance that any kind of narrativizing that he might do that would make him seem feminine is okay. Like it works because he is obviously not that.
Yeah.
You know?
And even in that story, he's playing Call of Duty on Xbox, right?
So I think similarly, the way that this framing works is because it is implicitly like the whole thing is that you are not this.
Right.
You are not this.
Obviously, I'm not a cult leader.
Obviously, I'm not a cult leader.
But if I was, ha ha ha.
Obviously, I'm not a cult leader. And
Right.
so I can talk to you in second person imperative,
Yeah.
like directive language because you're in on the joke.
Right.
And the joke is the obvious fact of the matter that we live over here
Right.
in our like safe space of normalcy where we stream docuseries.
Mm-hmm.
And they over there
Yeah.
are doing this whole other thing.
Right.
And I don't like the joke.
You don't like, yeah.
I just don't like it. I don't think that it takes its own, I don't think it buys its own bullshit. Like it doesn't take itself seriously enough
Right.
to like, okay, snark, satire or whatever, fine, there's a place for it, like generically, like as a form. But then do you mean the thing that you say though about like how anybody, like there are a lot of these interviewees who say, I mean, nobody thinks that they're going to, like that whole thing. You don't think you're going to be in a cult. Nobody joins a cult, blah, blah, blah. And you don't think that you could be susceptible, but really, like they end with that. And do you mean that? Because that, if that's true, or is that something you're also being snarky about?
Yeah.
Because if you mean that,
yeah,
if these people who are giving you their time, which has value whether you're paying them or not, like unless your joke is also implicitly saying this person that I'm interviewing and giving special lighting to and making sure that their mic is real dumb. I'm trying to. I've already given like 3 swears, so I'm gonna try to. Unless
I clicked the explicit box. It's fine.
Like unless you're also overtly insulting them.
Yeah.
Then that last piece that you're landing on is not snarky. That like anybody is capable of being part of these groups. And if that's true, well then the whole house of cards falls. Then it doesn't. Then the joke doesn't work.
This is one of those things where like, and I have not watched How to Become a Tyrant, or How to Become a Mob Boss, but I feel like this was going to the well one too many times because being yes, mob bosses do horrible things, I'm sure, but it's like there's a whole different like there's becoming a mob boss is a whole different kind of situation than any of these stories here, right? I mean,
maybe I don't know. I probably wouldn't like it either, but
well, no, I'm not saying it's good.
Because probably.
But you're not gonna have interviewees with people who escaped Jonestown, or interviewees with some of the most compelling moments in the whole series. Like the moment where in the Heaven's Gate episode where Sawyer's like, I think they're in space right now. I think they've moved on, and it's like they don't have anything to do with that. They just cut to the next thing, and like so someone's like it needs to go in because it's incredibly authentic.
Someone who's turned state's evidence against the mob boss who
Yeah, sure. But it's just a whole different. It's such a different cultural phenomena. I think.
Like to that, I would also say like probably probably. I mean, I have not watched it, so, but I imagine that a lot of that playbook sounds a lot like corporate CEOs.
Yes, probably.
I don't know.
This is what we've all learned from Jay-Z.
But we don't want to say there's a problem with capitalism.
Right.
We want to say there's a problem with the mob.
Right.
And there's not a problem with religion. There's a problem with cults. And it's like, okay.
There should be one like how to become the CEO of an exploitative.
Yeah, but right, exactly.
Yeah.
Except that joke doesn't work, right? Because that's something that we are invested in.
Yeah.
And we cannot be reflexive about our own complicity.
Yeah.
Like we just somehow, when we are like connected to these kinds of popular forms, like it just evacuates that capacity.
Yeah. I will say that the internet agrees with you, Merinda, because it's only got 46%.
Finally.
46% of the audience.
Finally.
On it was
I knew it would catch up one day.
It was a 57% tomato meter, 46%
I
pop
mean,
popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes.
I
So,
wonder how popular it was, though. Right? Like, I mean, it wasn't critically well received. Sure. But like, I
well, no, I'm
wonder.
saying like the
No, yeah, I know,
randos on
but
the
like,
internet rating was only
but I
47.
wonder like how. I wonder how many times it was
Yeah,
streamed.
those
Is
are
I
numbers we
guess
don't have,
yeah,
right? That's what's
right,
frustrating about
yeah.
streaming. I mean, I guess Nielsen.
Because a lot of people watch stuff they don't like, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just did.
Exactly. Well, that's because I have
Yeah,
unironic respect for you, dear friend and colleague.
well, we might not after this. Like, I feel like I knew what I was getting us into with the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Yes,
I did
I was
not
more
know.
prepared for that.
Although the editors, a number of the piece of information I will say, like the number of the editors who worked on this series,
Mhm.
were Vanderpump Rules
Oh, interesting.
connected.
I had a much easier time watching Secret Lives of Mormon Wives than this because I took those women far more seriously than anything that was said about
Yeah,
these groups.
and
People.
they're getting a second season.
Are
So
they?
they are. What are our takeaways? Not just for this,
Yeah.
because I think we've got to. We've,
You know exactly how I feel.
this thing is destroyed. It just lays in a
We'll
trash
see.
heap.
Oh God.
But like, okay, so what are our takeaways? Not just for this
Cringing.
thing, but for the whole a whole season of
Yeah.
Journey so far. Like, what was
Let's
your
think back on the experience.
like?
Let's reflect.
Yes, what was your favorite thing you watched?
I
What
called
did
it a
you?
year end review because it's not really a year in review. You know, we've
No,
only had like 6 months or
yeah,
whatever.
it's
But
it's the season review.
yeah,
But
the
what was
season
your
review.
favorite thing you watched? What did you hate or like the least? I have a guess. That we watched.
Yeah, like my takeaway from from this week. I'm never gonna get those 3 hours back, I think is my takeaway. This was, yes, by far the least favorite thing that we have watched. The stuff that I've liked. I mean, I mentioned Brandy Hellville and the Cult of Fast Fashion. I think that is a provocative title.
Yeah.
But I'm like, titles are always going to do that. I didn't mind that quite as much. I think that it's still kind of a like, it's an eye roll of a title, but I learned a lot. And I think that there is good work done in thinking about group formations that don't get classified as cult, but that do force that kind of comparative analysis that I was talking about earlier. So, again, and I think that there's more space for those conversations. So I think to put like, serial killer stuff in conversation with cult documentary stuff, like, is potentially constructive. I still like One Day in Jonestown, which is weird, I guess, because it was the one that maybe I was most skeptical about going in, because I think that Jonestown was maybe the one that was clearest in my own head as like, we all know what happened there, whatever. But that one stayed with me. And I thought that Wild Wild Country was really well done.
Yeah.
I thought that one, I mean, I think that one could have used a little more, well, I was going to say like external analysis, but I don't know. I mean, One Day in Jonestown didn't have that. And I thought that was part of why it was really effective.
Yeah.
So, those two were ones that like stayed with me as like things that made me learn a lot, and also kind of put a different perspectival on ramp that I didn't have before.
Yeah. I would definitely put Wild Wild Country up there. I think it has some of the best characters in it, and we see their story arcs, and it's just got some of the best just some of the best people in it, and it was just really well made, and it's beautifully shot, and
totally
it does a really good job of elevating the right people in the right moments for the story.
Well, and it had a spinoff, like any documentary that is like successful enough to create a spinoff. I think is, so people got really interested in Sheila, who she was, or who she is, who she remains, and what she's up to. I mean, my primary takeaway, I guess, like seasonally in a kind of holistic sense is, and I mean, whatever, this is going to come as a surprise to zero people, but I think that the primary appeals of these series and films in pop culture seems to be like unapologetic ease with which they create and reinforce convictions about who's one of us and who's one of them.
Yeah.
That feels really comforting, especially in times that are anxious and chaotic. And I think that a lot of people are experiencing a lot of anxiety and chaos right now. And so anything that can categorize the world in those sort of stark terms of like, this is normal, this is weird, this is good, this is bad, this is us, this is them, is like a big bear hug to our worst impulses. And, so that's my takeaway.
I also think along those lines, the ones that are driven by the experience of former members are doing a kind of cathartic work for a lot of people, where across that line of us and them, where they felt like they were sucked into understandings of us and them that they didn't realize at the time. Like, I think there's a lot of people who are reorienting us and them in ways that make these also kind of not just a way to talk about them over there, but a way of kind of a cathartic experience of their own boundary crossing.
Yes. I think that is very true for a lot of the people who tell their stories through these films and series. The extent to which then that kind of etic filmic overlay puts that into a bigger story arc. I don't know, but
like, I think a lot of people, I don't know what a lot of people is. I think there's an audience for these, especially people who are really into these, that that narrate their own experience as an escape from a cult, even if that cult was just like your basic evangelicalism or.
But do you think? Okay, so this is an honest question. Like, I bet that after watching Brandy Hellville and the Cult of Fast Fashion, like, I don't think that it created some sea change in our consumption habits. Like, but I bet that at least a few people, when they go, shop at Old Navy, might think about that film.
Yeah.
Or at least, I don't know, use it as a mode of like, I don't, maybe it causes me to shop at the thrift store or something.
Right.
I wonder if that, to what extent, if any, that is true for these cult documentaries in relation to someone and their own religious, like their participation in a religious tradition. Because my guess is that we are more willing to receive a story about and then think about our own behaviors in relation to something like fast fashion. That maybe we, like, when we see these kinds of extreme belief narratives, that only serves to further reinforce, like, oh, thank God my church is normal or whatever. My beliefs aren't like that. I don't know. I just, I feel like religion, like, we talk a lot inside of religious studies, like as an academic field, about how it's not a special case. It's a rhetorical tool like any other. It is a mundane thing that we use to organize our social worlds, whatever. And but I think that if it is special, it is the way that it functions for people in it's the treatment of it as special that creates a space where people just like.
You think that the category changes the conversation in a certain way?
Yeah. Like, I'm trying, I guess, to tease out what makes the Brandy Hellville documentary effective for me in ways that the Garden documentary isn't.
Because it has no authenticity claims.
I think
that's what it is.
Yeah.
To quote a good friend of mine,
Thanks,
you get the
man.
serious side eye to all authenticity claims.
I do.
But that's what's happening. Like, Hillville was not trying to say that anything was real or fake. They're not saying that this is fake clothing. They're saying this is cheap clothing.
Yeah.
but there's not a
Okay.
better way to do this.
Oh,
They're
that's
like,
helpful.
oh shit,
Yeah,
it's hard. Like
that's
it's
really
really hard.
helpful.
Like by the end of the film, it's like, I don't know how we have some ways to solve this,
That's
but
really
it's a
helpful.
giant problem.
Yeah, because
The
it's
garden's like,
it's,
is this a commune or
yeah.
a cult? What's
and
it really?
Right. Yes, that's it. We aren't invested in the things that we consume. Like authenticity is still very much a presence in marketing strategy.
Yeah.
But it's something that it's like reality TV. Like it's that kind of, we're willing to play that game.
We're not, and this is something I've learned the more I talk. I did a whole class on authenticity claims a couple years ago, and like talking to students and about like this, like they don't care about the authenticity of the item, insofar as it reflects their authenticity of the self.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and so I think like that's the what's behind even this series in front of us. These 6 episodes is like, this is fake religion. This is religion that has a book to it, right?
Yes.
Religion as calculated.
That's it.
Right, is fake religion.
If there is a playbook, then that means that there is a script, and then that means that it is something that does not grow out of some inherent, true, genuine sense of self, which, by the way, is very much an idea that is a undercurrent of so much of how we think about religion in the first place.
Yes.
That there is it's something interior and experiential and really like hitting to the true whatever. And this is why then too, people who are in cults, so-called, are brainwashed rather than people responding to who they are, where they are in that moment at that time. Instead, they're brainwashed. They were a self.
Right.
But then they got manipulated by this leader and they came into this group and got brainwashed.
Right.
And now they're just like, just bipedal zombies who are moving around like robots, and then they get deprogrammed. The language.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I think what is interesting is that like even the like I think I do not think, I'm not here to separate the real from the fake or the authentic from the inauthentic.
Right.
In fact, what I find interesting is the argument about those things.
No, 100%. This speaks to like what we were talking about last time in terms of our different expectations of like what we want want out of a piece of like pop culture.
Yeah.
And I was trying to wrap my brain around like it's not that there's a standard issue. It's that, how reflexive are you of the fact that the thing that you're making or participating in is a ruse, or is a like not even a ruse, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's all quote unquote fake. Like,
and that's why those reality shows that you love work.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I'm not mad at them, because I feel like they are honest about like what they are doing is not it is performance that is still somehow in like good faith where the genre is concerned.
Right.
Like what we are doing is something that is a really good version of this thing.
Yeah.
It's like WWE or whatever.
Right.
But when it comes to religion, I think because we treat it as something that is still so, that gets such special treatment, the fact that our, presidential candidates still have to like seem really devout and pious, and they still have to like go to prayer breakfasts or whatever, like it is still very much a thing that we can't give that treatment to. You'll see exceptions to that rule with like the righteous gemstones.
Right.
Or something.
Yeah.
But even that is like I like that show a lot. But again, it would never be, that's not a reality show.
Right.
Like you can't, I'm trying to imagine.
It's about the most cartoonish forms of religion you could imagine, right?
The closest you get to a reality show about religion is stuff like Sister Wives.
Yeah.
But that's not,
again, that's also,
it's not about the,
Yeah.
It's not about their religious faith.
Yeah.
Like you see that tangentially in the same, Like,
in some ways, like, I think that
what it's
was
about is polyamory.
But that's
like,
that's what Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I think, was interesting, because so much of it was about the boundaries of being Mormon, right? And like, who's a good Mormon, who's a bad Mormon, in a way that was framed within a world where we know that these are not
yeah.
like this is all happening within this kind of reality show.
Yeah. Nominally. Like, the reason it worked, though, is because what we were really interested in, what we came for, was not the like sophisticated variations on a theme of Mormonism.
No,
what we
no.
came for were these,
Yeah.
pretty 20-somethings who were having disagreements with their husbands.
Yeah.
In the same way, I think that Sister Wives is not something that like people are really, I'm interested in learning about. Whatever. It's not, so it's not about religion.
Right.
It creates that religion creates this like wacky backdrop, because what we expect, it plays with our expectations in some way, or it pulls back the curtain on something that seems secret. I don't know.
I want to give more credit to Secret Wives, because it does have more it's more religion coded in a certain way, that I think they're trying to talk about. When you grow up with this identity that's coded religion, which means you're supposed to do these things or those things, or not do these things, but you don't either. Like, how do you navigate that? Do you buy in and give a shit about it, or do you not?
Yeah.
At what point are you able to then say no? Like, so there's a negotiation of like religion as identity and as sort of social expectation.
Okay, here's something though. So in those, and I don't know, because I've only watched that one season that you made me watch of Secret Lives. But
that's all we got.
Like, but I'm wondering if this is the case for Sister Wives. So I don't know. I mean, if anybody is a viewer, I bet that those cameras never go with them into church, though.
Yeah.
Right? We only ever hear them talking about, like, here are the norms, here are the rules, here's the whatever. Right. Because, and understandably so, because those are protected private spaces.
But see,
so there is.
But isn't that better? Isn't that more? But isn't that what we always say, right? If religion
like this,
isn't special, if religion is really about how you know who you are and who they are,
sure.
If it's really about these social expectations that you have to work within around gender, race, whatever, then the way religion shows up in Secret Wives of Mormon Wives, I think, is actually more apt to the kind of sophisticated understanding of religion.
Sort of, kind of, accept. So long as there is this unspoken and just deeply, immediately understood fact of the matter that these spaces are private, we cannot go there.
Yeah.
We respect them in whether we do or not as people, our laws do.
Yeah.
And so we cannot take cameras in there, because they are private spaces in such a way that something like, as long as that is structurally in place,
right,
everything that you're dealing with is part of a bigger social relationship to religion that doesn't deal with religion.
Okay.
Like,
I need someone. I need somebody out there to get me an interview with the showrunners of Secret Wives of Mormon Wives. Because here's the thing that I think. They might know that where the capital R state-sanctioned religion is happening, i.e. the temple or whatever, is actually not where religion is happening. And therefore... Yeah. Right?
I mean, yeah, I hear you.
What you're saying is like, they're not going to go... Like, the idea that religion only happens in these spaces and these are the private spaces...
No, I hear you. I mean, like, I totally agree with that. Like, religion is not a thing that is contained in those spaces at all.
So they don't need to go there.
But I think that the practice of not
going there
is something that reinforces a particular ideation, relationship to the thing, as if it were contained only in that space.
This is back to where we were.
Does that make sense?
No, this is back to where we were like 5 minutes ago about like the halfwayness. Like religion is rhetorical, social identity, blah blah blah, except when it's
love,
real, not
exactly.
Right.
But love, on the other hand, is something that happens in all the spaces, in all the ways, at all times. And so there are fun, cartoony ways of performing it, and then there are really like deep, sentimental ways of performing it, and they're all. But it is this kind of thing that is ubiquitous always. But with religion, we try to have it both ways. We want to have it all over and infiltrating every part of our economic structure and our politics and our media and the way that we kind of like get access to language about meaning and journeys and whatever. Like, religion is so ubiquitous, but we still want to, in the US at least, create this kind of public-private dichotomy that is akin to the binary that I see up and running between the us them stuff too.
Yeah.
That with, that this space is something that lives categorically over here and that we treat with respect. And this thing lives completely over there and it is profane and thus, subject to our just unalloyed mockery.
I would be interested in hearing your take on that on the love comparison after you watch the whole season of something, because of the ongoing the discourse that is always in the background about being there for the right reasons, which is a different angle on authenticity.
Yep.
Right, but it's still there.
No, for sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Why are you here? Are you here for love, or are you here for Instagram influence?
Sure. Yes. What is your? Sorry.
No, that was a lot of my takeaway. I think
you have.
I think that
you have editing to do, sir.
I think that we have I think that the cult documentary is a genre. No one. I went through the other day and went through every streaming service that I have access to and searched cult and put a bunch of stuff to update our list going into season 2. And I was like, none of them have a cult documentary genre. Like, nothing is tagged as cult.
It's true crime.
It's true crime, or it's documentary, or it's like something like that. And but I think that there is a genre, and I think there are places where these are referencing and talking to each other. So I do think this exists, even if it's not actually articulated by any of the producers of them. And I think there's certain tropes, like certain modes of representation, certain conventions that they're playing with in different examples of these. I think like the Heaven's Gate, Cult of Cults, the Going Clear, and Wild Wild Country. Like, those are the 3 that I think set the tone. Like, they set the genre up, and then other ones are playing with them. I think the reality TV documentary spectrum is like super helpful for placing these and thinking about, like, I don't think anyone who made Secret Lives of Mormon Wives are like, we're making a cult documentary.
Sure.
But I think that the evangelical documentary, which is sort of like we haven't talked about, was it Shining Happy People?
The
Duggars one, but like the Hillsong one. I think that is sort of a subgenre somehow connected to these, because they look the same in a lot of ways. And I don't think that these are going anywhere. Like, I think that these are, for a number of reasons that we haven't even gotten into economically, about how cheap. Like, this show was so cheap to make because the animation was animation. It was interviews with people, and it was stock footage, like a lot of stock footage,
totally,
right, in this series. And so, and a lot of borrowing. I guess Will Allen gave them the rights to use his film, because there's a lot of that in the episode about Buddha Field. So I think that, like, these are alive and are going to keep going.
Sort of like how every year around this time of year we get like new holiday special shows and movies that are, I mean, I don't want to say Hallmark, but I don't think it's even Hallmark anymore. But just these like go-to storylines, and like actors that cost a certain kind of like, or in a certain kind of pay scale, and like everything is so ready made. It's all like it's this kind of
and I think that
but it makes us feel good because it's, 'tis the season, and I think these make us feel good in a similar way, because 'tis the season of just like existential anxiety and crisis.
So I thought Heaven's Gate, Cult of Cults, I think was one of the most well made.
Oh, interesting.
And I would say that Going Clear was probably was up there too. And Wild, and I already mentioned Wild Wild Country, but like I think those are the ones that I thought were like this is really well done. Secret Lives of Mormon Wives was my favorite. I just that was the one that I had the most fun watching.
Yeah.
And The Garden sucked. I did not like The Garden. I just didn't. It just wasn't doing it for me.
Well, I mean, I didn't like its question for sure.
Yeah, I mean, The Garden was like, what if a TikTok was a 8-episode TV show? It's like, I don't know. So,
but maybe in a different kind of generic framing that would appeal. I don't know. This is what I mean. Like
a certain kind of. What do you mean?
Well, like, isn't that the way that some of those reality shows work? Or maybe not, because those have a really clear like outline. Like they have a really clear structure.
I mean, and the reason The Garden failed is it didn't have what we needed it to be. It didn't have what it needed to be a successful documentary because it had a dumb question.
Okay.
But it didn't have what you need to have a successful reality show, which is stars, people who are good at being on camera. I'm still in the middle of Love Island season 6. Yeah. There's like 3 or 4 people who I'm like, those are reality TV stars. They
or
should
like
be
those
on multiple
benchmarks
shows
that you know to look for.
Right. But what makes it a good version of that is that the people doing it are incredibly entertaining and doing things that are unexpected or like making things happen that are interesting.
Yeah. And
you didn't have that in The Garden. You had one tree was doing his thing, and then that wasn't enough. And so it didn't, like, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives had like 2 or 3 people who were very good on camera, and very good interviews, and made it more interesting.
I think that they were more conscious of being influencers on camera.
Yes.
I think that part of the problem with Tree was that he legit wanted to live off the grid.
Yes. That was
so I mean, I guess that's my own authenticity claim or something, but like how that stuff, how those dynamics play into it is again, that kind of reflexivity.
Yeah.
I think is so key.
Yeah. I mean, except for Whitney, who did not realize she was the villain. What's your cult favorite? This is going to be quite the shift.
Well, not really, not for me. Because you know how my brain tries to connect all of the things for better or worse. So there is a book that that has a metaphor that I use in basically every single class that I ever teach, and it's Toni Morrison's "Playing in the Dark: Whiteness and the Literary Imagination." I read it in graduate school. It was really useful to me on all sorts of levels, as I was like a little burgeoning, developing brain trying to think about literary analysis and critical theory. Published in 1992. Anyway, but so she's talking about like early American canon writing and white authors and how blackness and an Africanist presence like exists in even if like ignored and choked. She calls it a choked representation of an Africanist presence inside of these texts. But she has, in order to talk about that, a metaphor that I think is so applicable to just about anything that we might think of on the level of structure. And she says this: "It's as if I'd been looking at a fishbowl, the glide and flick of the golden scales, the green tip, the bolt of white careening back from the gills, the castles at the bottom surrounded by pebbles and tiny intricate fronds of green, the barely disturbed water, the flecks of waste and food, the tranquil bubbles traveling to the surface. And suddenly I saw the bowl, the structure that transparently and invisibly permits the ordered life it contains to exist in the larger world." And I just think that it is such a, so I guess my cult favorite is this book, is that metaphor, is something to like carry with us as we think about lots of things that we might talk about on this show or just in our lives. But there is always, whatever we think we're looking at, whatever we try to describe, it's always being contained by something.
Mm-hmm.
It's always given its life by virtue of a system or a network or a structure that often operates invisibly And we're just, we're just in the water we swim in.
Mhm.
So we don't notice that because we're just fish swimming around, or we're people looking at these little fish
Yeah.
and saying, look at, aren't they cool? Look at the colors of that one. That one's interesting. Look at that one. That one's eating a flake of something right now. And from either perspective, whether we are not thinking about the water we're swimming in because it's so familiar to us, or whether we are standing on the outside and looking at something and describing it because of its abject otherness, there is always a structure that invisibly permits that very thing to exist. And I think that that's worth trying to notice more often than we do.
Wow. Yeah. That's great.
So my my invitation to the new year, everybody, is to identify the fish bowls that operate in your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
And in your work.
Amazing. I'm thinking about that. So my cult favorite is inspired by you last week, and then a tweet thread from our friend Alex.
You, the internet's catching up. The internet's agreeing with me. I'm inspiring you.
So our friend Alex had a tweet thread, and one of the things was about returning to your old favorite musicians to see what they are up to now. And that got me thinking about, so my cult favorites are two albums by two punk bands that were very, very, very important to Teenage Mike. And they had new albums that came out this year. The first was Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs from Alkaline Trio. It's a great album. It sounds just like it was one of those albums that sounded like they used to, but better. And I was worried about them because it's the whole Blink-182 thing. Anyways, and then the song Versions of You that's on there, great song. Second, Less Than Jake, a band that I've seen probably more than any other punk band and a ska band. Would
we call them punk?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got a Descendants tattoo on his leg.
Okay, sure.
I saw them at Warped Tour.
Speaking of genre.
I saw them at Warped Tour.
Okay.
No, they're very important in my life for a variety of reasons. They brought. Anyways, Less Than Jake has a new short little album out this year called Uncharted. It's like 22 minutes, 7 songs. But it opens with a great song, Broken Words, which is just a lovely ska song about being unable to ever say the right thing or even think about what to say to someone you spend your life with. And considering that someone I spend my life with, we went to a bunch of Less Than Jake shows together.
If only there was a playbook with tactics you could use for saying the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
I had a number of one-liners there, but all of them were either too revealing or inappropriate. So as Alex said, it's a pleasure to hear these bands evolve.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to think about that.
Yeah.
So.
I love all of the callbacks that we're doing with this. Like Alex we early on, did a cult favorite of her book, Extending Play, The Feminization of Collaborative Music Merchandise in the Early 21st Century.
If you have time, makes a great holiday gift. So
yeah, man.
You're getting this on the 23rd. Run out there.
It's got a good cover.
Go to Borders.
We've also got a little piece of Mike lore that we haven't gotten in a while. We haven't heard about Teenage Mike in a while.
Yeah.
We've got some of our
Yeah.
of the people we've met along the way.
I've been
conversations.
2024 has been a year of nostalgia for me. So this is just the icing on the cake.
Okay. Well, all I know is that the internet agrees with me now. So
yeah, no,
it's
you're
this
right.
middle child's moment to shine.
Thanks everybody for listening to Cult Favorite. Thank you for listening to our first season and for making it where at least more people were listening to it each time.
Nowhere to go but up.
It's going to be great. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a rating and a review. Find us on social media at Cult Favorite Pod. Look for that. There will be some stuff between now and when the season 2 starts.
Yeah, we won't disappear.
No,
we just won't record as much.
Right,
for a minute.
It'll be good. I ordered new microphones. Special thanks to the Department of Religious Studies at the University of Alabama for production assistance. If you are interested in pursuing an innovative master's degree with social theory, digital tools like podcasting, the program of Religion and Culture program at the University of Alabama is probably for you. Programs designed to equip students with sought after analytical skills, like looking for the fishbowl, communication skills, like recording this podcast, and digital skills, like also recording this podcast. That can be applied in any number of careers with rigorous coursework and original research in case you want to go get a PhD as well. So thanks for them providing space, lights, power, this laptop, I think. And we'll see y'all in 2025.
Happy New Year.